I'm doing this story because I think we have a complicated world. And I think the complication of that world is often hidden from the public itself in lieu of narratives that get spun out. And those narratives oftentimes are pro-Israel, regardless of the finer context that may be necessary in order to understand what's taking place. When Israel goes on a bombing raid, oftentimes they don't take credit or responsibility for the raid. They don't say anything about it. They're mum about it. One of the outgoing Israeli Defense Force Chief of Staff, Eisenkot, I think that's how you pronounce his name, he's essentially, I guess, leaving the biz and is telling some of the secrets and essentially is owning up to near daily attacks on Syria over the past few years. He's owning up to thousands of bombings in that country. Now, if you remember, recently Israel used a Russian jet for cover. That jet was shot down, or a Russian helicopter for cover, and that helicopter was shot down. They did the same thing recently using airliners essentially for cover. This was like a couple of weeks ago, as they pursue their bombing campaigns. If you remember, Russia made the choice to give Syria S-300s in response to them shooting down or getting a Russian plane shot down with all of the people on board dying as a result. This is why. If anything goes on where Iran responds or Syria responds, be aware they're responding for provocation that has been taking place over the course of years. The attack on a sovereign nation over the course of years. That's what's been taking place. Let's take a look at the story. I'm not going to keep this one long. Be aware of what's taking place around your world, and be aware that one of our allies is ruthlessly attacking another nation for years without a response to those attacks. The outgoing chief of staff has acknowledged that Israel has been bombing Syria on a nearly daily basis for years in a massive campaign alleged aimed to degrade Tehran's supposed military buildup in the region. The Israeli Defense Force rarely acknowledged striking specific targets in Syria, but its outgoing chief of staff just openly confessed to running a large-scale bombing campaign on its neighbor territory. In 2018 alone, Israel dropped around 2,000 bombs on alleged Iran-linked targets. Gadi Eisenkot told the New York Times in his final interview as chief of staff of the IDF before he retires next week, "We struck thousands of targets without claiming responsibility or asking for credit." Eisenkot stated, confessing to carrying over strikes near daily. "We have complete intelligence superiority in this area. We enjoy complete aerial superiority. We have strong deterrence, and we have the justification to act." I love that. Self-justification. We alone can make a determination on whether we act. I suppose any country can make a determination on whether they act or not. I don't know if that's where legitimacy is to be found, however. Not to mention the chaos that is wrought from it. Despite the Lieutenant General's claim about moral high ground in the battle against perceived Iranian threat, the Israeli Defense Force carried out several reckless and sometimes lethal actions during their missions in Syria. On Christmas Day, the Israeli jet used 2 civilian aircraft in flight or cover to engage targets in Syria. The Russian Defense Force said, noting the IDF's F-16 flew as the civilian jets were landing in Beirut and Damascus airports. While a tragedy involving civilian airliners was averted last month, similar Israeli tactics led to horrific consequences before. On September 17th, Israeli jets put Russian, I guess that's IL-20 Recon plane into the path of Syrian Defense Force interceptor missiles after failing to give Moscow enough warning of a strike on Syrian targets. This resulted in the death of 15 Russian crews on board and compelled Moscow to supply Syria with S-300 missile defense systems. Russia has warned that in event of any threat to its servicemen deployed in the country, it will jam radio and satellite signals from military aircraft approaching from the Mediterranean, which seemingly forced Israel to slightly adjust its bombing routines and routes. Yet despite the repeated dangerous behavior in the air, Israel continues to intrude in Syrian airspace under the campaign between wars military strategy, which envisions a continuous and lethal engagement to degrade an enemy's military capabilities. Developed by Eisenkot, the tactic was given the green light by the cabinet in January 2017, and they have been bombing nearly every day since. That's amazing. That is amazing. Just be aware. That's all that's associated with this story. I'll leave it here. I say this. I say be aware because I think the world is more complicated than the narratives that they give credit for. And oftentimes, this is not the stuff that you see, that they've been bombing for near continuously for 2 years. What you see is Israel is attacked. Israel said this. And many of the sources coming from Israel itself. I mean, the world is complicated. Just be aware. This takes place also. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. Thanks all.